Our aim is that our country can no longer afford another disputed electoral outcome. And therefore, it was proper that we engage with the executive with a view to find each other and make the law that will cure disputed electoral processes. In that regard, we made the following proposals when we interacted with the Honorable Minister of Justice. We firstly made an observation that the memorandum to the Electoral Amendment Bill HB 11 2022 is narrow in nature and does not capture sufficiently the issues that need to be addressed. We cannot achieve sufficient electoral reforms when the bill that has been introduced restricts itself to aligning the current act only to the 2 constitutional amendments that were done in 2021. We believe that it has to align with the rest of the Constitution. We observed particular issues in that bill which we believe need to be attended to. Firstly, it is the issue of creating new qualifications for one to be elected to be a member of parliament or a councillor. The bill brings in a scenario where it says if you have been convicted in the previous 12 months for certain offenses, you cannot qualify to stand as a member of parliament or as a councillor. We believe that this provision is not only retrogressive, but we believe that it violates the Constitution of Zimbabwe. We believe that the Constitution, in terms of Section 125 and Section 278, sufficiently covers the qualifications that are required for a person to be elected as a member of parliament or as a councillor. And therefore, to try and introduce other qualifications, we feel that it is an attempt to curtail some members of the opposition from contesting for those positions. And therefore, our suggestion is that that clause should fall away. But above all, contrary to what is in the public domain, that there is nothing that has been taking place with regards to electoral reforms, there are certain platforms that had already taken place and where certain agreements had been reached. And it is our view that those agreed positions should find themselves within the bill that is currently before Parliament. We are all aware that Poland, where we are not participants, had a document in which they agreed certain positions in terms of electoral reforms. We would be happy to see those agreements that they had at Poland being included in the current electoral amendment bill. We would be also glad to see the agreements that were done during the interaction between civil society organizations and parliament through the Zesin bill. Certain agreements were made during those engagements, and we would love to see those agreements finding themselves in the current electoral bill. But there were also other parallel activities that were being undertaken by political parties that are in parliament, facilitated by civil society organizations. Again, there was a meeting of the minds in certain respects, and we wish to see those agreements getting into the bill. But above all, we will all remember that one of the reasons that pushed this country into the liberation struggle was universal suffrage. To make sure that every citizen of a qualifying age can participate in the determination of who is going to govern them. this bill does not talk about disenfranchised citizens in terms of elections. We have got a number of citizens that are disenfranchised. And on top of them is the diaspora. Statistics indicate that we have got between 4 and 7 million Zimbabwean citizens that are resident outside the country. We appreciate the challenges that are raised by other quarters to the extent that they cannot vote for a councillor, they cannot vote for a member of parliament because of the residence requirements. However, we have seen in other jurisdictions, here in Africa, those that are in the diaspora being allowed to participate at least in the presidential election. Why? Because the constituents for the presidential election is the entire country. So the residence issue does not arise. We have a number of unregistered voters who have failed to register due to accessibility issues. We know that ZEC has got centers throughout the country. But can you imagine a person in the rural area having to board a bus, paying $20 one way, just for the sake of going to register? We believe that that is almost impossible, and it is disenfranchising. And as a result, we have made proposals. Our proposal is that there should be a mandatory clause in this bill that shall force ZEC to undertake a voter registration blitz at least 4 months before a general election. And we hope that it will be taken care of. The other disenfranchised population is that of prisoners. As we believe that it might be impossible to make every prisoner to vote, we believe that there are prisoners who are serving long-term sentences. Those an administrative action can be taken to ensure that they exercise their right to vote. We also propose that this bill should talk about accessibility of the voters' roll in analyzable formats. But above that, we believe that it has become international best practice that before a general election, an audit of the voters' roll is conducted by reputable audit firms. And it is our call that we should have at least 3 reputable audit firms agreed upon by contestants to audit the voters' roll before we get into the election. And the reason for that is public. It is common cause. It is because we don't want them to talk about ghost voters, duplicate voters. We need a voters' roll that is acceptable to everyone else. We have also made a proposal that the procurement, design, and security of the ballot paper should be agreed upon by the contestants. And again, that is a best practice that we have seen happening in our neighbors' jurisdictions. We also believe that Section 110, subsection 3, especially paragraph C up to paragraph F of the current Electoral Act, needs to be amended in the sense that collation, addition, and tabulation of results that are received at the National Transmission Results Center, in terms of that act, are simply reviewed and done by the CEO without the involvement of the agents of the participants in the presidential election. Similarly, the announcement of results in terms of that law seems to ignore the fact that before an announcement is made, the agents of participants in that election should validate those results as being correct collection of the figures that would have come from the polling stations. And as a result, we believe that that particular section should be amended. In addition to that, at polling stations, we believe that presidential results should not be exempted from being posted outside the polling station or from being declared at that polling station. There is no harm in declaring at a particular polling station that presidential candidate X got so many votes, whilst presidential candidate X, Y got so many votes. And then finally, we believe that our electoral law has got a big gap. It is a law that talks about declaration of presidential results but does not speak about transition of power. And therefore, we have made a proposal that there should be an ad hoc committee which is responsible for transferring power from a previous government to a new government which would have been declared by ZEC. And in that regard, we have made proposals of who shall comprise of that committee. The composition literally comprises of members of the bureaucracy, headed by the Chief Secretary to the Cabinet, to the President and the Cabinet. We believe that that committee should be able, after our results have been announced and declared, to then start working on ensuring that the president-elect begins to take over the levers of power. And that is what we have made as a proposal, and we look forward that those proposals will be taken aboard as we debate the Electoral Amendment Bill, HB 2022, in Parliament today. Thank you, sponsors.